gentlemen, welcome to the opening ceremony of Gerontech and Innovation Expo Summit. My name is Kaka Lam, the MC for today's event. And here with us is Rachel Learn and Wency Lo, our sign language interpreters. The Gerontech and Innovation Expo Summit, GIES, is co-hosted by the government of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region and the Hong Kong Council of Social Service, and co-organized by the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation. The aim of organizing this GIES is to promote the use of innovation and technology in Hong Kong to enhance the living standards for the elderly. We are delighted to have so many experts, practitioners, and the media here today to support the event. May I now invite Mr. Bernhard Chen, Chairperson of the Hong Kong Council of Social Service, to deliver the welcoming remarks. Mr. Chen, please.
Good morning. Chief Secretary Matthew Cheung, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to welcome everyone to this opening ceremony for the Gerontech and Innovation Expo and Summit, the GIES. The GIES is co-hosted by the Hong Kong government and by us at the Hong Kong Council for Social Service. It is our first attempt to promote the concept of gerontechnology in Hong Kong. We believe that the time is right for the community, and especially the corporate sector, to pay attention to this subject. This is a new field in Hong Kong, but it is going to be a very big one in the future. I would like to say a few words about why, and I can speak from personal experience about this. Thanks to modern technology and lifestyles, we think it is normal for people to be healthy and fit and stay active in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s. But when the effects of aging do come along, they can be quite sudden. Last year, my father, who is now in his mid-80s, started to see his mobility decline. To cut a long story short, I found myself looking for a device that would help him, particularly looking at wheelchairs. It was the first time in my life that I had really thought about these sorts of products. And to my surprise, there are quite limited options available on the market in Hong Kong. It is only when you or a loved ones need these devices that you realize how limited the choices are. The products were not ideal, and to be frank, we had to make do with what the best we could find. A few months later, I was leading a delegation, the Hong Kong Council for Social Service delegation, to the International Home Care and Rehabilitation Exhibition, the HKSAR, in Japan, in Tokyo. My plan was to spend an hour or so at the HKSAR exhibition and then go elsewhere to do some other things, such as going shopping in Ginza. Well, as it turns out, instead, I found myself spending the entire day in the HKSAR exhibition looking at the amazing range of high-tech and low-tech products. For example, they had a huge range of things like wheelchairs. They have a robotic arm that can transfer a patient out of the bed. As a matter of fact, one of our delegates is Dr. C.C. Lam, and he actually put himself on the trial on that robotic arm, and it took, 3 minutes from him for transfer C.C. Lam from a bed to a wheelchair. They also have a bed that can turn into a wheelchair. That's made by Panasonic. They have a walker on wheels that I think the Chief Secretary Matthew Cheung just tried himself that can pull user uphill and also slow them down as they go downhill. And they have some basic and other simple things as well. I was truly very impressed, and I wish I can bring them all back to Hong Kong. The Japanese government has encouraged the private sector to start addressing the needs of the aging population. So big companies in the auto industries, the electronic industry, and the insurance industries are developing and supplying new devices and new approaches to things like care homes. They are looking for ways to help the elderly look after themselves in their own homes and to provide labor-saving solutions in care home environments. One thing I saw was a robot instructor to lead groups of senior citizens in physical exercise classes. Now, of course, Japan is further down the road than Hong Kong in terms of its aging population, but we are not far behind, and 1/3 of our population will be over 65 in just 20 years. This expo is designed to give us ideas about the way forward. With the support from Hong Kong government, the New World Group Charity Foundation, and the China Merchants Charitable Foundations, we have many examples of these Japanese products for display. And we also have exhibits from places like Korea, Taiwan, Germany, Singapore, Italy, Canada, and the US. In collaboration with the Science Park, we have managed to line up today a large group of local companies here to exhibit their new inventions related to the needs for elderly people. And we have lots of experts in our summit to share their experience and their insights in various plenary sessions and workshops. I hope people from many sectors will be inspired. This is going to be an area of growing demand, and it will offer major opportunities for the caring professions, for designers, for innovators, for technology specialists, and for companies in a wide range of sectors. There are various challenges, such as addressing the special needs of the elderly in our crowded environment, and creating products that are suitable and affordable. The potential is enormous. Let's not forget that the mainland China will also find itself with an aging population in the coming decades. So ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Hong Kong Council for Social Service, I welcome you all, and I hope you have a very productive time learning and sharing ideas about one of our biggest social challenges and professional and business opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chen. Please be seated. 2017 marks the 20th anniversary of the establishment of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, and the GIES is one of the projects to celebrate this special milestone of our home and to build a better Hong Kong. May I now invite our guest of honor, Mr. Matthew Cheung, Chief Secretary for Administration of the HKSAR government, to deliver his opening address. Mr. Cheung, please.
Mr. Bernhard Chen, Hai Wei, Mrs. Fanny Law, Dr. Bernhard Schwartländer, Dr. Jane Barratt, Ms. Eleanor Kem, Ms. Huang Yi, Mr. Leung Cheung, distinguished guest speakers, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, government colleagues. Good morning. It is my great pleasure to officiate at the opening of the Gerontalk Tech and Innovation Expo Summit, GIES. On behalf of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region government, I would like to extend my warmest welcome to all of you, especially friends and guests coming from the mainland and other parts of the world. This is a special time of the year for Hong Kong. In less than 2 weeks, we will be celebrating the 20th anniversary of the establishment of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. With the concerted efforts and wisdom of our people, Hong Kong is now a modern metropolis with robust systems, world-class infrastructure, vibrant economic vitality, and diversified but inclusive social culture. We have come a long way to firmly establish ourselves as one of the most competitive cities in the world. The 20th anniversary is a significant milestone. It is a time for us to consolidate our strengths and advantages and chart our course for future development to optimize new opportunities. Our senior citizens have contributed much to the success and prosperity that we are enjoying today. Apart from being a major event celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, this important event provides a great opportunity for us all to consider how to make Hong Kong a better city for our senior citizens. To age well when Hong Kong is becoming an elder society. The GIES puts together the great minds with vision, experience, expertise, and commitment in various aspects of elderly services. This three-day event enables participants to engage, to learn, inspire, and explore from holistic perspectives with a view to finding solutions to advance the well-being of our elderly population through application of technology and innovations. To make Hong Kong better prepare for the aging challenge, we have been engaging the Hong Kong community in active dialogue on wide-ranging issues such as population policy, healthcare financing, and retirement protection. Such policy dialogues in recent years have alerted the public to coming demographic changes here. Today, 1 in 6.5 people in Hong Kong is aged 65 or above. In 20 years' time, it will be about 1 in 3. The population of the old, those aged 75 and above, will double during the same period from around 550,000 currently to 1.17 million. 3 out of 5 persons turning 65 today will live to 85 or beyond, and 2 of them to at least 90. Many Hong Kong people will experience periods of retirement that will extend to 2 or even 3 decades. Public perception of the aging trend has so far focused on the challenges of bridging gaps in social security, medical, and social services. No doubt these are the legitimate concerns and challenges that we are, as a community, should address. How prepared we are to support our growing elderly population will define largely the Hong Kong that we are going to see some 20 years down the road. Care for the elderly has topped the agenda of the current government. We are firmly committed to improving care for elderly persons and their quality of life, ensuring that they will continue to enjoy a sense of security, a sense of belonging, a feeling of health and worthiness. Our commitment is well illustrated by our annual elderly expenditure. Recurrent government expenditure on elderly persons in social security, healthcare services, long-term care services, etc., reaches $73.9 billion in the current financial year, representing around 20% of our total government recurrent expenditure. In other words, for every $10 we spend, $2 go to the elderly. That is, compared to the elderly expenditure 5 years ago, this expenditure represents a significant increase of almost 76%, which is a pretty significant increase. Our elderly policies to promote active and healthy aging, underlined and underpinned by the twin principles of aging in place as the core, institutional care as the backup. Aging in place and at home is the preference of our elderly persons. But aging in place is not only good social policy, it is also good economics. Adequate and reliable assistance and support for daily living can help our senior citizens living in the community remain active, healthy, and independent for as long as possible. This can reduce premature institutionalization. In Hong Kong, about 6% of our elderly population are living in elderly homes. This figure is high as compared with our neighbors such as Japan, where the rate remains low at about only 3%. There is therefore a need for us to develop home-based or community-based care more aggressively in order to moderate the rate of institutionalization. We are currently providing care to 30,000 elderly persons in the comfort of their homes with a wide range of services, including rehabilitation and simple nursing care, meal delivery, personal care, and escort. How we can capitalize on technological advancement to increase our capacity in delivering home care to elderly persons is certainly an area that we need to look into in future. Another 30,000 plus elderly citizens who cannot adequately take care of themselves at home and currently living in subsidized residential care services. Apart from embarking on our regular program to expand our provision for subsidized places, we introduced a special scheme on privately owned sites for welfare users through a one-off injection of $10 billion Hong Kong in 2014. The scheme is expected to provide an additional 7,000 residential care places and 2,000 daycare services for elderly persons in the coming 5 to 10 years. Meanwhile, we are finalizing a blueprint for development of elderly services up to 2030. This is done under the auspices of the Elderly Commission chaired by Dr. C.C. Lam sitting over there. Earlier this year, the government has set aside $30 billion to strengthen services for elderly persons arising from the recommendations of this study, among other things. Accessibility of affordable and quality healthcare services is the prime concern of most elderly citizens. From this financial year onwards, we have increased the annual provision for the Hospital Authority for enhancing public healthcare services for elderly patients, such as chronic disease management, rehabilitative support, community geriatric assessment for the terminally ill in residential care homes for the elderly. To expand the infrastructural capacity of the public healthcare system, we are pressing ahead with a 10-year hospital development plan at a total capital cost of $200 billion Hong Kong. That's correct, $200 billion, a lot of money there. We've also been tapping into the private healthcare sector to increase our capacity. The eligibility age of the elderly healthcare vouchers will be lowered to 65 from 70 next month to provide eligible elderly persons an annual voucher amount of 2,000 Hong Kong dollars to use private primary care services. Doing things the traditional way cannot help us cope with the considerable demands that a growing elderly population will put on our healthcare and social systems. We need innovations. We're making efforts to explore new modes of service delivery to enhance our capacity and better suit the needs of elderly users. We piloted the concept of money following the users in the provision of community and residential care. The community care service voucher for the elderly scheme and the residential care service voucher for the elderly put the choice of services back into the hands of the users themselves. We launched another pilot scheme earlier this year to integrate social and medical care services for elderly with mild or moderate dementia and their carers in the community. Through the support under this collaborative arrangement, demented elderly could receive care and intervention at an early stage which can help them stay in the community for as long as possible. We've also provided subsidies to carers of elderly persons to relieve financial burden of low-income families in caregiving. Support and training services are made available to carers through our district-based elderly centers. To facilitate active and healthy aging, we have launched a public transport fare concession scheme for the elderly by phases since 2012 to encourage our senior citizens to stay in touch with the community. Under the scheme, elderly persons can travel on our public transport, such as the Mass Transit Railway, franchise buses, ferries, and green minibuses at $2 per trip. I must say that this is a hugely popular scheme, attracting over 881,000 trips per day by our elderly citizens. We've also made improvements to our built environment to help elderly persons of different levels of functionalities to move around easily and confidently. Over half of our elderly population are living in public housing, comprising public rental housing and subsidized sale flats. Our new public rental housing projects have adopted universal design to enable tenants to reside in the same unit even at old age or after becoming immobile. For all public rental housing blocks, we would make modifications inside the housing units to meet elderly tenants' special needs. We have installed barrier-free access facilities at public walkways under the Universal Accessibility Program in various locations across Hong Kong. 8 districts have already been recognized by the World Health Organization as part of its global network of age-friendly cities and communities. We are striving to transform more of the remaining 10 districts in Hong Kong to be age-friendly. Financial security, of course, is crucial to elderly persons' peace of mind. As part of our efforts to enhance the multi-billion retirement protection model, we will further enhance the old age living allowance, a means-tested monthly allowance for elderly persons aged 65 or above, introduced by the government in April 2013, by adding a higher tier of assistance and relaxing the asset limits to benefit more elderly persons with financial needs. Also, we are introducing new investment tools such as a pilot silver bond scheme and a public life annuity scheme to help those elderly persons with assets to supplement their retirement income. Notwithstanding the above efforts, much work, I must say, remains to be done. Our elderly policy today has been typically defined around discussions of the old and poor and old and disabled. Although this will continue to be appropriate for many old adults, these definitions alone do not allow for the policy innovation necessary to respond to a new generation of older adults. The next generation of elderly population is expected to be more educated, financially stable, and receptive towards technology. As such, we must be prepared to invest and innovate in a wide spectrum of technology solutions for aging in place to cater for the varying elderly profiles and demographics. We must realize that the elderly, especially those staying alone at home, needs to have access to timely care when the need arises. Technology is indeed essential in this unprecedented undertaking. Our senior citizens are not a homogeneous group. The power and potential of technology to address the lifestyle preferences and needs of an elderly population and those who care about them must be fully and creatively exploited. Technology does not have to be complex and costly to assist elderly persons to lead independent living. Small measures, such as giving kitchen utensils large, easy-to-hold handles, and installing grab bars around a bathtub, can go a long way. The internet and smartphones have vastly improved communication between older and younger people. It is not just elderly persons who can benefit from technology. It also helps carers. Technologies are available to help elderly persons stick to medication, diet, and exercise plans, while others can identify and alert their family members or professionals to potential health assets or problems. Devices can help elderly persons stay alive. Motion and vibration sensors can detect falls, a common cause of disability for elderly persons, and summon help. Technology can open up so many possibilities to improve care for elderly that have not been thought of before. As technology progresses, the ways in which we can help elderly persons live independent and satisfying lives will only continue to grow. Over the years, our elderly care sector has been tapping into various funding schemes to modernize their operation with applied technology. This includes the 1 billion Hong Kong dollar Social Welfare Development Fund to upgrade their IT systems for enhancing organizational management and service delivery. Eligible operators in the private sector can join the technology voucher program to improve their productivity or upgrade their business process through technological services and solutions. Last month, the government just launched a $500 million Hong Kong Innovation and Technology Fund for Better Living. Welfare NGOs may use the fund to develop technology-centered projects that bring more convenience, comfort, and safety to daily living for elderly persons. While these funding schemes may catalyze the adoption of technologies in the elderly care sector, we want to see the changes happen in quicker pace and broader scale. To provide a better basis for discussion at the three-day summit, we have commissioned our Hong Kong Foundation to conduct a landscape study on the use of technology in the local elderly care sector. At the moment, I do not intend to go over the study findings, as they will be discussed in greater detail in one of the plenary discussions this afternoon. With the benefit of this study, I can see that there are at least 3 areas that we can put in more efforts and attention. First, we need to build closer collaboration between our universities, research and development centers, and our elderly care sector in order to share knowledge, exchange ideas, and develop solutions for driving greater diffusion of technology and innovation in elderly care. Such connections are pivotal to ensure that locally developed products are reliable, cost-effective, and most importantly, relevant and human-centric. Directly taking technology to elderly persons and their carers and telling them to use it will not work. It is pertinent that from the outset and throughout the process of conceptualization and realization, The continuous engagement and feedback of various stakeholders are solicited in order for the solutions to be successful. Apart from encouraging more collaboration between our research institutions and the elderly care sector, we should also attract more overseas enterprises to bring into Hong Kong's market their proven technology-based products. As these new technologies are already commercialized, they will also be more affordable to our elderly persons. Second, the voices of elderly persons as users. Users should be at the center of the design and development process, and innovations must be tested with elderly persons who will actually be using the products. Future generations of elderly should be a far more active population, and the technological needs can be vastly different from those of recent elderly groups. Elderly persons should play a more active advocacy role in making known their user requirement and driving the adoption of technology to better promote active and healthy aging. Government departments, NGOs, social enterprises, and other stakeholders should make use of its existing community network to allow the voices of elderly persons to be heard. Third and finally, policy facilitation. As policymakers, we should consider what more public policies should be in place to spur innovation, encourage business investment, and commercialize technology-based products and services that will enhance elderly persons' quality of life, facilitate caregiving, and improve service delivery. Moreover, the government should become a major consumer of technology to enhance quality of care for elderly persons, receiving subsidized residential care as well as home care services. The new purpose-built elderly facilities in the pipeline for delivery in the coming 5 to 10 years are perfect grounds for inclusion of more technological and innovative solutions in service management and operations. On top of current funding schemes, we should also consider whether further incentives should be given to help elderly care operators, including those in the private sector, to test out applied technology innovations in their services. Good policy must ensure equity. Consideration should therefore be given to developing incentives of subsidies to ensure that low-income elderly persons and their families have access to new technologies. Ladies and gentlemen, active and healthy old age is an important part of our life that each of us aspires to achieve. Hong Kong must begin today to ensure that one of the greatest achievements of mankind, longevity, does not become one of its greatest problems. Leveraging on the technological power that in part helped us achieve our longer lifespan will be an important part of how we will live tomorrow. Finally, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the Hong Kong Council of Social Service and the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation, which have been working closely with us on this event in the past few months. The idea of organizing the GIES came into being rather late last year. We are now here to witness its grand opening. This could not have been possible without the dedicated support and collaboration and contribution from our trustworthy partners. I would also like to thank the New World Group Charity Foundation and the China Merchants Charitable Foundation for their sponsorship of this event. My thanks also go to all the speakers, heavyweight speakers coming from the mainland and also coming from overseas. Before I close, may I invite you to spare some time to visit our expo with over 110 local and overseas exhibitors outside. I've made a short tour before I came here, and I must say that seeing is believing. I'm absolutely amazed and impressed by the state-of-the-art facilities on display. And I can assure you that the visit will be fascinating and inspiring, as really technology has no limits and knows no boundary. On that note, thank you very much indeed. I wish you a successful and very, very useful conference in Hong Kong and a pleasant stay here, and take time out to see a bit of Hong Kong and do shopping and help to boost our economy here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cheung. The keynote session, Aging in the Technological Era, will now begin. Our two keynote speakers, Dr. Bernhard Schwartländer and Dr. Jane Barratt, will share with us the international experience in promoting policies and initiatives for elderly persons to enjoy their lives amidst rapid technological development. Our first speaker today, Dr. Bernhard Schwartländer, has been the WHO representative in China since 2013. The WHO has been catalyzing and promoting innovation for aging population and leading global forums to drive diffusion and use of innovation worldwide. And Dr. Schwartländer definitely has a lot to share with us. Please welcome Dr. Schwartländer.
Thank you very much, Chief Secretary, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends. It's indeed my great pleasure to be here today and also pass on the very warm greetings of my Director General, Dr. Margaret Chan, who of course is a citizen of this wonderful city, Hong Kong. And obviously, she is just finishing her more than 10-year tenure at the helm of the World Health Organization in 2 weeks' time, and she couldn't possibly make it because she is completely covered in the handover of her enormous duties to the new Director General who has been just elected and will take office in 2 weeks from now. It is a great pleasure to be here today with all of you. Thank you. And I love the diverse the participants are, coming from private sector, entrepreneurs, government, health agencies, investors, and of course, community services. The fact that we're all gathered here from across disciplines is a testament to the fact that we all collectively, as a community, share responsibility for healthy aging. Even though I've always worked in my career as public health officer, as a student, I studied philosophy, and I always found it fascinating that human beings as a species are unique in our ability to enhance our capabilities. We're not the fastest animals. Cheetahs far exceed our ability to run fast, and horses can carry humans or goods faster and much further than we could do. And unlike an octopus, if we injure our leg, we cannot grow a new one. But we can manufacture prosthetics and walk and run and jump as we had grown a new leg. And we can build cars and rockets and planes and go faster and further than any other species. In fact, we are able, when we bring together our collective strengths, to solve complex problems in ways that enhance and extend our experience here on this earth. And this is exactly that kind of a collective work that is needed for healthy aging. But unfortunately, we are just not yet doing well enough. We live in amazing times. In many regards, our collective health is strong. Today, for the first time in history, most people can expect to live well into their 60s and beyond, and that is just wonderful. But in many ways, this is only half of the challenge. We want to do more than survive. We want to thrive. Living longer should mean that we have more time to engage in activities that we enjoy and to do that with people that we enjoy to be with. Yet, this depends fundamentally on one factor, and that is health. Let us think back a few months. Earlier in April, WHO and its partners sought to raise awareness of the condition of depression, which was the theme of this year's World Health Day. We estimate that 322 million people worldwide of all ages suffer from depression, and more than 50 million alone in China. As with other illnesses and diseases, depression levies an unacceptably high burden both on the individual and the society. I mention this today because too many of those suffering from depression are elderly people. In fact, about 70% of the total elderly population. As people get older, the ability to do the things they love to do, engage in a conversation with friends, listening to music, or play with their grandchildren in the park, tends to decrease. Their world shrink. Physically, they are more limited and less independent. Socially, they can become isolated or feel that they are a burden to their families or caregivers. And WHO just released a couple of days ago a new report that shows that 1 in 6 elderly people are constantly harassed or even exposed to violence because they are felt to be a burden. In short, we're not doing our collective best to provide elderly with the healthy aging options. The program of this exhibition and also the exhibition outside will show us many excellent examples of innovation in this area. And I would rather like that than going into the details of this and the many excellent examples and the specialists are going to present to you over the course of the next couple of days. And I won't present you with the statistics because you all know them and that's why you're here. So what I want to do is, in the next 10-15 minutes, is to focus on 3 broad areas which I believe are critical as we take forward the aging solutions for the future. First, we need to start by unleashing innovations in services and care that will meet the unique needs of older population and strengthen long-term care. In Shanghai, for example, automatic bath machines have been widely introduced to community care centers. These machines can comfortably and safely clean a body of a disabled person in 5 minutes. Ongoing technological development has led to a decrease in the cost of this machine, which in turn has led to an increase in uptake. Previously, at least 3 persons were needed to give a bath to an elderly person. 1 to carry the patient, another to do the cleaning, and the 3rd to manage the water. But with this new technology, only 1 caregiver is needed to quickly and safely bathe a person to give them back the feeling of cleanness, to give them back dignity. There's a huge potential for wearable devices that can be worn like a watch that help elderly people to stay independent, and family and caregivers can keep track of what's happening, detecting falls or rise in blood pressure or summoning help. Other devices like pillbox sensors monitor people with Alzheimer's and dementia from afar. And robots can help to cook dinners or bring things in the house and connect people with a little screen to their families and follow the people in their living spaces. Furthermore, while just a few years ago the idea of driverless cars was firmly in the realms of science fiction, now they could be on the roads by as early as next year. This could transform the lives of elderly people, some of whom are virtually trapped in their own homes because of poor and inaccessible public transport. So, innovation is needed, but do we have the standards that clearly describe which of these innovations, which of these devices are truly needed, are truly helpful to the elderly people and make a better life? Or are we just charting new ground for commercial activities? I think these are things that we equally have to look at. And while there already exists a wealth of innovative technologies to enable the older population to maintain their health and retain their dignity, there are huge gaps in accessibility and access today. And this is not just for the most advanced and most expensive products. Gaps do exist for many of the most basic assistive devices, such as hearing aids and wheelchairs. That is why bringing such technologies fully to scale, using local production and removing many of the unnecessary regulatory barriers are recommended ways to close this gap. My second point. Beyond services, we need to think about systems. There's no doubt that innovative technologies can improve the lives of older people. And there's many examples out here, and some of the most simple ones may be the most important. But innovative thinking can also contribute to changes in the platforms for service delivery, as well as long-term delivery and sustainability of health systems. A new generation, a new tiered health system could serve the older generation better. Health systems that rely on hospitals alone cannot meet the challenges posed by a rapidly aging society, and no society in the world can possibly afford a health system that's mainly based on hospital delivery. And in such places as China, where one has to stand in line for hours very early in the morning to just take a number to see a doctor later in the day, the task of receiving care is made all the more cumbersome especially for the older people. In contrast, home-based or community care as opposed to hospitalization or no treatment at all can provide the elderly with improved care and greater sense of autonomy at reduced cost for the individual and the health system. It is the Chinese dream of my Director General, Margaret Chan, that when she comes back in about 2 weeks' time to Hong Kong, that she will have a family doctor in her neighborhood close by where she is living. And she discussed this Chinese dream of hers with President Xi Jinping several times, and I was able to witness this discussion. Having such a system, and combined with innovative technologies that can provide a front line of defense, like devices that measure gait regularly, medication, reminders, mobile phone apps that track patient indicators, or internet-linked doctor consultations, then we can reduce the burden on health systems and help maintain individual autonomy, health, and happiness. For example, just the other day I heard that Alipay is piloting no-cash hospitals to improve the efficiency of the seeing the doctor process in a hospital, decreasing the time spent in hospital so as to improve the rate of antenatal checks. It's this sort of innovative thinking that could basically turn the health system upside down. The internet can also connect the patient with the clinic, with the caregiver, right from their living room. And a decision can be taken when indeed a person needs to go to the clinic or a caregiver has to go, greatly increasing the security, the feeling of safety, and of course, the care that is given in the end. My third point, it is not just about healthcare services, apps, and technology. Healthy aging is also very fundamentally about our built environments. The physical space we live in and how they can promote or prevent healthy aging. Cities play a huge role in the health of all of us, and especially our aging populations. Quite literally, the physical environment can ensure seniors stay engaged, or it can block them. And we have heard a very impressive speech of the Chief Secretary initially, how much cities like Hong Kong have been starting to invest, but I think we still have collectively a long way to go. Local shops, markets, the coffee or tea bar, places where people can just walk and talk from their home. We are underestimating the influence of these local environments that they have, particularly on the older populations. One of the most charming things that I see almost every day in China is the older people getting in their daily exercise by dancing in public squares or practicing Tai Chi in the park. Likewise, many public spaces have exercise equipment available free of use, which is a true and a very simple innovation that I would love to see replicated elsewhere in other countries. Not only does this provide opportunities to be physically fit, it also affords participants the opportunity to socialize, something that is essential to maintaining good mental health during the later stages of life. The problem, however, is that many cities are not built with health in mind. For example, poorly designed roads and pedestrian infrastructure can turn what would otherwise be a simple and short walk to the park or pleasant bicycle ride into a tragic event. And I don't forget a few weeks ago when I was riding my bike in one of the most densely populated areas in Beijing, Dongzhimen, you may know this, and there was an old lady sitting on her tricycle and riding in the middle of hundreds of cars in one of the most populated roundabouts in the city at a very low speed, just as she was doing 40 years ago when there were no cars at all. We must find better solutions than this. Pollution can turn what would otherwise be a wonderful outdoor exercise session into a potentially cancer-inducing activity. And poor public transportation or lacking wheelchair access can turn a trip to see a doctor into an overwhelming challenge. But it's not only the physical infrastructure, it's also the behavior that can obstruct or facilitate healthy living. It is the cars they park on the sidewalks. They block intersections. They don't stop if somebody wants to cross the street. So it's fundamentally the intimidation that cars that have taken over modern cities today pose on people the moment they leave their house. Beijing, my beloved home city, has engaged in a massive crackdown on illegal small neighborhood shops and markets that were prevalent everywhere in the city. I do understand the principle and the need to manage large cities and to protect housing built for living rather than for commerces. Looking at many of the cleaned up roads when riding my bike through Beijing, I'm impressed with the beauty and the cleanness, sometimes bringing back the Beijing as it was a generation ago. But I do ask myself, have we forgotten about the old people? Where do they go and buy the vegetables? Where do they go and eat their soup? I think the jury is still out, but unless we plan for the places where people can go, where they can walk, where they can talk to each other, we will not be able to achieve a healthy living. There may be a supermarket close by where you can buy the basic food. But have you ever tried to discuss the price of a vegetable, to discuss the weather, standing in front of an étagère, in front of a box of fruits? This is something we should not forget. That is why we say it is not enough for the health sector to be involved in the healthy policy-making process. What we need is city planners, engineers, education, environment, and transportation departments, scientists, innovators to be at the table too. And of course, there's the need for the input of civil society and elderly people themselves. My friends, I cannot finish my talk without reminding us of what may be the most important. Healthy aging starts at birth. 80% of adolescents in China do not have enough physical activity. More than half of Chinese men are smokers. It's these lifestyle risk factors that determine the health of the elderly. And the best assistive technology cannot beat a healthy lifestyle throughout the course of life. Here I want to congratulate my colleagues from the Hong Kong Health Department. You have done many things which are remarkable to look at, but just 2 days ago you have achieved another milestone in your fight against tobacco use, a very difficult battle for everybody, but also for you. You have achieved a new law that describes that 85% of tobacco packages need to be covered by pictorial warnings about the risks of smoking. This is world class. I really thank you. It will make a big difference for healthy living, for your populations. I think you deserve a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, we are fortunate enough to have reached a stage of development and scientific and technological advancement in which the focus of health is no longer limited to death, disease, or disability. Rather, we look forward to having a better life during the later stages of our lives. Attainment of these objectives is a sign of true progress in social and economic development. But it is nevertheless a huge challenge for all societies. We are now standing at a critical juncture. For the first time in history, the population of older people will outnumber that of younger people. This demographic change will create massive challenges for health systems and national economies. And it will have an enormous impact on the lives of individuals, families, and communities. It will take all of us, working across sectors and professionals and locations, to rise to the challenge. Let's get to work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Schwartländer, for the wonderful talk. Now we are pleased to have Dr. Jane Barratt, the Secretary General of International Federation on Aging, IFA, to be our next keynote speaker. Apart from her integral role in the IFA, Dr. Barratt also serves on several national and international boards, both public and private sectors. She has also received the Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee Medal in Canada in recognition of her commitment and passion to enhance the understanding of issues relating to aging and engaging in dialogue with governments and private sector to improve the quality of life of elderly people. Let's invite Dr. Barratt, please.
Mr. Matthew Cheung, Mr. Bernhard Chan, Mrs. Fanny Law. Sponsors, organisers of this inaugural event, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning, but most importantly, to share some views and perspectives about ageing in the technological era. Every single one of us in this room will own a phone, and every single one of us will be actually using it at some stage in the day. And what's more, while I'm speaking, we are reaching out all over the world through many pipelines of social media. But what you may not know is that 46% of those phone users admit to actually walking into something while they're texting. Another 60% actually admit to being injured while lying down and using their phone because their phone drops. So perhaps in the future, we'll have a different kind of older population that have injuries because they've been using their phone. However, we were born into this technological era, this growth of mobile phones, this growth of social media. But we're also born into an era where the older population should be one of celebration. Older people are a diverse and culturally rich population globally. Older people are not a homogeneous group. And so when we think of germ technology and older people, there is no one-size-fits-all. We're here because we recognise the tremendous business opportunities of an elderly population. Today, there are about 901 million people over the age of 65. And if you're fortunate, you'll be one of those now or in the future. And in 2050, there'll be 2.1 billion older people. And yet, while we're celebrating longevity, we are constantly barraged through the social media, but also print media, with the philosophy that older people are an inevitable economic and social burden. If you look at the language that we're using today in the media, we're saying that there's a tsunami. Tsunami says only one thing to me: it's danger. We're also talking about a rising tide of people with dementia. You know, the peril of a global population aging trend. One report in 2015 said something entirely different, and it's at that point that we need to be thinking about a radical change in our narrative around older people, a radical change in the way we think about growing older. And it was the BMJ and the WHO who said older people are not a burden. You must ask why. Why are we saying this? Particularly when many older people will have what we know as NCDs, these non-communicable diseases, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, respiratory conditions, cancer. And we also know that the prevalence of these is extraordinary around the world. You know, the numbers tell us the message. 3.9 million people with respiratory disorders in the world today. 1.6 million people with diabetes. 8.8 with cancers. 17.7 million with cardiovascular disease. But that's the number of people with a diagnosis. It tells us nothing about the functional ability of that person. I could be standing here with diabetes and I'm functioning. So when we think about gerund technology, we must think about the word apply, the application of gerund technology in the context of a person that doesn't have a diagnosis but has a particular functional ability. And note, I'm not saying functional disability, because we need to be turning the coin over, seeing growing old as the glass half full rather than the glass half empty. But the NCDs are important messages for us, important messages about what we do as we grow older. We're not born with an NCD. We make lifestyle changes in many cases that precurse us to these, but it's costing a tremendous amount of money. This is the money, the global economic burden of some of the NCDs, $515 billion cardiovascular disease, $12 billion accounting for lung disease. So the fact is, many older people will have what's called chronic comorbid conditions, which are very complex. But once again, we're not saying anything about function. You can have diabetes and cardiovascular disease. You may even have cancer, but you may be functioning independently and autonomously in your home. And that's why I put these images here, because a person with diabetes and cardiovascular disease may have an amputation. A person with diabetes may have what's called diabetic retinopathy, and that's what they may see. Older people often have hearing changes, and many older people may be frail. And it's this application of gerund technology, these products. What we're trying to do here is enable older people to do what they value. That's what we're here for today to talk about. When we talk about older people, we talk about different kinds of functions that may be changing. Movement, sensory, cognition, the immune system. My mother, whose name is Billy, is 89. She's not frail, but she finds it very difficult to walk very long distances. But she can sweep the footpath and she can play with the dog. She is independent and autonomous, but has great challenges in her movement. Not only are there changes in the physical function and mental function, and note, I'm not saying negative changes, but there are changes. Where we are born and where we live throughout our life impacts the level of function, and therein impacts the nature of the products, the nature of our thinking about innovation and technology. So someone who is born into a disadvantaged area that has poor nutrition, that has low education, will inevitably, we know by science, have significant chronic conditions in their later life. So, when Bernhard was talking about the age-friendly environment, environment plays a vital part in the way that we think about older people, but also respond to the needs of older people. So the big question here today is, where do we invest? And I was struck by the power of the conversation of Mr. Matthew Cheung. The commitment that the Hong Kong government has dedicated to its population, but specifically to the health and well-being of the older population, is nothing short of remarkable. So, where do we invest? And what is our return on investment? Because that's what governments around the world may actually be asking. Is my investment up front worth it? What is my calculated return on investment? So I'm going to respond to those questions. There was a landmark report, the WHO, for the first time ever in 2015, produced the first evidence-based report on ageing and health. It was a landmark study that pulled together as much evidence as we have around the health and well-being of the current older population. And by the way, we're not here to talk about future ageing populations. We're here to talk about today's older population and tomorrow's and the next day. We shouldn't be discarding our efforts to think about the future. Let's think about those that need our creativity and innovation now. There were 5 priorities that came out of this report, and you can see them very clearly. We've already mentioned environments, and Mr. Cheung mentioned active and healthy ageing several times in his conversation. There's a goal that every single country will have a system of long-term care, but I might add that in the developed world, only 1 in 7 people over the age of 75 should ever require any long-term care, which means that our systems, informal and formal, our products, must inform and enable older people to do what they value. One of the critical goals here that we do very badly, and I'll raise it several times in this presentation, is measuring, monitoring, and research. We fail miserably in understanding how to measure the impact of a product or an intervention or a model of care. And we must be much smarter with understanding the methodology, but also putting in place systems that measure change. Otherwise, we can never get any better at it. So, out of this global report, there is a global strategy and action plan. Could I just, water, excuse me for a moment. And there's 2 key goals in this action plan, and it's already started. And I'm very pleased to say that we have signed on to it. We, as a global community, over 193 member states, signed on to this global strategy. So you can see that we're talking once again about how do we maximise this functional ability of older people and move towards a stage where 2020 to 2030 will be a decade of healthy ageing. A key shift in our thinking about healthy ageing is our definition. The definition that we've known since 1948 is this, as you can read: the state of complete physical, mental and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. But that talks about a place in time, a state. It does not talk about the process of growing older. And so the new definition that I really want you to think about, because it's got 3 key words that if there's anything else that you don't remember in this talk, it's these 3 key words. It's process, it's function, and it's enabling. They're 3 key words that when I look at the products, I'm going to ask myself whether those products respond to the needs of an older person. There are many factors that influence the health in older age. And while WHO puts down the right-hand side, housing, technologies, transport and social facilities, I would suggest that it goes much broader than that. Now I want to explain a very important concept, and it's the framework of healthy ageing. If we don't understand the concept of healthy ageing, then we're going to find it very difficult to actually develop products. So what are we developing a product for? So we have the intrinsic capacity, which is myself. It's the emotional, the physical, the mental, all of my capabilities. It's the decisions that I've made in my life, the decision not to smoke, the decision to go to the gym, the decision not to drink. They're my decisions that I've made. And you have your own intrinsic capacity. And then we have the environment in which we live. And it's not only the physical environment, it's the political environment, it's the emotional environment. Do I live with someone? Am I alone? Do I live in rural and remote areas? Do I live in community? It's all of those aspects that make up the environment. And healthy aging is this relationship between the intrinsic capacity and my environment. I want to bring to your attention some hypothetical trajectories of physical capacity. We want to be in A. We can see that there's a gradual decline in our physical capacity. And then we all want to die a gracious and generous death. Or B is the second best option. And the second best option is that we fracture our neck of femur, fracture our hip because we've fallen over. But we've got good health care. We're back into the hospital. We've had that corrected. We've got good family support. We're actually discharged home with good support services. So our function actually improves remarkably. But if we don't have those other systems, then we may well deteriorate. And C is where none of us want to be, which is the gradual deterioration. So when I'm thinking about innovation and product development and germ technology, I want to see that there's an innovation that actually lifts this functional ability. There are 3 phases that one can go through, and they're reflected here. High stable capacity, declining capacity, and significant loss. But at every point in that trajectory, and we may not go through the 3, you know, the inspiration of an innovation that lifts our functional capacity is there. We need to ask some very simple questions. What do we want as an older person? What do we have? What's my functional status? Where do I live? And who do I live with? These are 3 very important but very simple questions around our health decisions. So let's talk about innovation. There are 3 buckets of innovation: incremental, radical, and disruptive. And in the next part of my talk, I'm going to try and give you examples of how innovation can respond to this level of functional ability, because we need to be very practical and applied when we come to germ technology. So, we need an environment that's person fit. The environment needs to fit me. I shouldn't have to fit the environment. And often, products are made because we can. And the person almost has to fit the product versus the product fitting the person. So in other words, we're not developing a person-centred product or a person-centred innovation, but we've come up with this great idea, and I'm sure it's going to work with older people. Well, let me tell you, they don't. And that's why not only do we need older people at the table, but we need experts in ageing, experts in environment, you know, experts in thinking creatively if you want a product that works. So what do we all want as we grow older? A role, relationships, the possibility of enjoyment, autonomy, security. That's what we want. And what we want to be doing is changing this trajectory. So this is where we start. If I was developing a product tomorrow or informing the consultation process of a gerontechnological strategy, I'd be saying, how does it enhance quality of life? How does it enhance functional status? And how does it minimise my symptoms? Because that's what healthy ageing is about. So let me give you some examples. An example is where a person has pneumonia. So it's costing $10 billion in Europe. So a lack of vaccine, someone not being vaccinated against pneumonia, will cost Europe $10 billion. 1 in 5 people over the age of 65 will have pneumonia. And those with NCDs have a much higher risk of pneumococcal pneumonia, but also being in hospital. So let's have a look at this. These are the symptoms of pneumococcal pneumonia, both hospital and non-hospital. And you can see there's weakness, cough, tiredness, etc., etc. But what's most important is what happens to your function. And this is what happens. 41% lost balance. 43% had limitations in self-care. 57% had difficulty moving around the home. So you can see that that's catastrophic disability already, because a loss of balance to me says that we're going to fall. And this is the cost of falls. So if I was thinking about being innovative, first of all, I would create a strategy to improve the uptake rates of vaccines, but then I would start thinking about, if this person's had a fall, what do I need to do? I was fascinated, with the social media around this summit. And one of the products I looked at online was the robotic walker. Incredible. Because what it's done is taken, if I think about loss of mobility, which means someone has to remain at home, they're isolated, they're depressed, there's a precursor to mental health disturbance, then all of a sudden we have a robotic walker that actually responds to the needs of that person. And all of a sudden, that person can do what they value, and that is walk. That's innovation. Now, Uber was one of the most disruptive innovations in my lifetime. And now we're moving on to have Uber Assist, Uber Wave, etc. One of the challenges with Uber is the monitoring and evaluation as it relates to older people is just not there. Let's now talk about vision. This is the most feared issue in one's life, the loss of vision. So when I have diabetes, and because I don't go for my screening, because the system has failed me and not sent me the alert, then this is what I deal with. And many people with diabetic retinopathy are unable to manage their diabetes, which then leads to greater management issues. But what would happen if there was a device that could talk to me about my medication? And indeed, there is. So once again, the person does not fit the product, but the product is actually fitting the person, their needs. So now they don't need somebody to come into the home to actually respond to their needs. Also, there are glasses that actually enable a person, and this is a musician, to be part of community. So once again, we have what is the issue, what is the product, and how do they marry together. Isolation is everywhere, but the impact of isolation is indescribable. And you can see not only are there physical manifestations, but also social ones. So there's been tremendous advancements in the kinds of ways that technology can connect. But what I'm wanting as a person in this field is to know that products are actually measuring the impact of the technology. Don't talk to me about people Skyping one another. It's about what's the impact. And I might add that my mother and father will not Skype me. I live in Canada, they live in Australia. And the reason being, because my mother does not want to see my face, because she then realises that I'm in Canada and she's in Australia. If I'm on the phone, it's a game. But for her as a mother, she doesn't want to keep being reminded that I'm way over there. All right, I just want to move quickly on to some real innovation in education. So learning and growing and making decisions, team-based care responses, and this is for nurses' education. So this really tracks their knowledge, and there is a readout, and then they can learn up about different perspectives that they've missed. Virtual reality dementia, fascinating, because this woman who has advanced dementia, she wanders, she's inarticulate, she doesn't know her surroundings, she loved water, So these eyes take her to water, and all of a sudden, she actually has a coherent conversation with staff. So the technological advances are there, but it's how we apply them and make value of them. Once again, gamified learning apps, but all of these that I show you that are developed by Baycrest in Canada are measured and monitored. And this is the simulation of volunteers in a learning pattern. I do want to touch on this remarkable work that's being done in Hong Kong. And I want to acknowledge our Hong Kong Foundation and the Hong Kong Council of Social Services, because Hong Kong is unique in that it's had a very thoughtful approach around gerund technology. Gerund technology has been around for many decades, but here today there is a systematic approach in Hong Kong, with tremendous government commitment to understand how the application of gerund technology can not only fulfill the needs of older people and help to ensure that they are healthy and functional, it also is looking at the business opportunities. So I acknowledge them. And these are the challenges that came out of the study that I'm sure are going to be discussed in plenary later today. I want to now take us to the next, where I truly believe, and this is a remarkable building in Hong Kong. I love looking at buildings because I actually can't get in my head where an architect is to actually design something like this. It's completely out of my realm of possibility. But this is where Hong Kong is today. My belief, with looking at what you've done in a very short time, is that Hong Kong will be the global leader in applied gerund technology. It is the application of gerund technology that is your point of distinction. And in closing, here are some key points. Gerund technology is an enabler to a person's function. A person with a functional ability is autonomous and independent. Evidence-based innovation is absolutely critical. Please don't talk to me about a product that has no evidence. It's a good idea at the time, but it will not have sustainability and it won't fly. Gerund technology must be viewed through a cultural lens. What works in downtown Toronto will not work in Beijing, will not work in Brisbane, and will not work in Hong Kong. We have to be smart, unpack the innovation, see where it fits and why it should fit. Products for the sake of products without human beings is useless. We're a society that actually has lost the contact of human beings. If 46% of people with a mobile phone admits to walking into a pole while walking and texting, we have some work to do as human beings. So let us not lose the simplicity of touch, the simplicity and power of communication, and communication means listening as well as talking. And finally, monitoring and measuring impact is an absolute must. Innovation without measurement is useless. So we come back to, where do we invest? We invest in all population, all ages. However, we have an investment opportunity to enable older people to do what they value, and in doing so, be functional, contributing members of every single family and society. And as a person that's growing older, I want to be able to contribute not only to my family and society, but globally. So the answer is we invest today, now, in older people of today and older people of the future. I wish everybody in this room and the exhibitors a tremendous conference, but I look forward to 10 years when Hong Kong is attracting 20 and 30,000 exhibitors to this meeting. Thank you very much.